Internet, welcome to Food Theory, the show that's hotter than a ghost pepper and just as likely to make you cry. Today's gonna be a spicy episode all about spices. Specifically, why spices though? As in, why do we use them? That at first might seem like a dumb question. We use spices because it makes the food taste better, duh. But not so fast. Other animals don't spice their food, which means that within the animal kingdom, humans are unique in this way. Sure, there are some primates like chimpanzees that are known to chew bitter leaves before they eat, which suggests that they might be trying to enhance the flavor of what they're about to consume, but overall, humans are very differentiated in the fact that we use spices. And that's kind of a big deal. Other traits that you'd assume are uniquely human are totally not. Having a sense of morality? Nope. Rats and monkeys have both been shown to reject food in order to prevent another animal from receiving electric shocks. Burying the dead? No again. Both elephants and magpies have been observed engaging in what's known as body care when another animal in their species dies. Basically covering the body with leaves and branches, sometimes even dirt to protect the body from scavengers. Even tool use is a trait that's shared between us and certain species of crow. So the fact that we're practically alone in our use of spice is weird. But perhaps weirdest of all, the things that make spices spicy are aversive chemicals, which evolved specifically to keep organisms away. These chemicals are specifically harmful or painful to insects, fungi, bacteria, and oh yeah, mammals, a category that we humans happen to be a part of. The sensation of spiciness is literally your pain receptors being activated. You'd think that animals would perceive that as a bad thing, and indeed, it is a bad thing for all other animals, including mammals, and yet here we are, actively seeking it out. So why? Why are we doing it? What is the history of human spice use, and what, if any, evolutionary advantage has it served us over the years? First, it's important to note that spices never used to be as plentiful as they are now. During the Middle Ages, a pound of black pepper was equivalent to 18 days' wages for a common person. Compare that to today, it's around $4, basically half an hour's wages at minimum wage. A pound of nutmeg back in the day, that would trade for 7 healthy oxen, as opposed to $20 of modern currency. Of course, the high cost of many spices in Europe throughout much of recorded history is explained by the fact that these things had to be imported. And international shipping was a lot slower and a lot more expensive when those things had to be done via horseback. But as you can imagine, with prices like that, spices, especially when you're talking about Asian spices, were used mainly by the extremely wealthy in medieval Europe. Which means that the next time you sprinkle some ground pepper onto your meal, or you order a cinnamon latte from Starbucks, take a minute to appreciate that you're quite literally living like a king. Thus, it should come as no surprise that the cultures that have a long history of cooking with spices are the ones where those spices are native to the region. For instance, the famous habanero chili pepper originates in the Amazon, rainforest, not online store. And thus, all the countries that have a long history of cooking with the habanero chili are located in and around Latin America. Ditto for peppers like the jalapeno. On the other hand, in certain parts of the world, namely Europe, spices were much less abundant. That's why northern European countries are known for having food that's notoriously bland. Sorry, I actually don't want to make any enemies here, so let's just say that the flavors of northern European countries are more subtle than the spicier cooking that you find closer to the equator. But availability only tells us part of the story. For example, take the Thai chili, commonly used in Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and of course, Thailand. This Thai chili must then have originated in Thailand. Obvious answer is obvious, right? Wrong! Like the habanero and jalapeno, the Thai chili actually originated in Latin America. Before they made their way over to Thailand, the Thai chili was more commonly known as the bird's eye chili. In fact, that seems to be true for almost all known species of chili. Ironically enough, the pepper famously known as the Thai chili didn't make its way to Thailand until the 16th century, when traders brought it over as part of the Columbian exchange. Yep, Columbian, as in Christopher Columbus. If you want more info on that world-shaping event, check out last week's episode where we explored the food that they ate during the medieval times by looking at Medieval Times, the restaurant. It is wild how much the Columbian exchange changed the face of food from around the world, and peppers were obviously one major part of that. By the way, the fact that Christopher Columbus is responsible for introducing chilies to the rest of the world is also the reason that they're called chili peppers, despite the fact that these chilies look nothing like these peppers. You see, pepper and chili plants have two totally different genuses. A pepper is a member of the genus Piper, while chilies are members of the genus Capsicum. The reason why chili peppers are often called peppers is actually due to just historical error. In his classic signature move of just slapping on whatever label he felt like, Columbus tasted chilies that were native to Latin America and was like, hey, these are some hot, spicy plants. They must be related to that spicy black pepper that we have over in India. And from there, the name just kind of stuck, despite the plants being completely unrelated. Back to the point though, none of this answers the question of why early people started harvesting and farming spices to begin with. If you're a subsistence farmer, aka a farmer who grows crops mainly for yourself and your family, adding things to your food just because it tastes good seems like a luxury that takes away from time that you could be using to grow more nutritious food. So why are you doing it then? And more importantly, why would cultures that use spices outcompete those that don't in the the evolutionary battle royale. What do I mean by that? Well, from an evolutionary perspective, a culture that wastes time and resources growing and eating things that don't have nutrition and are literally trying to be caustic to potential predators, yeah, they should probably lose out to a culture that doesn't waste a bunch of time and resources on that very thing. And yet here we are, a spice-loving society. Survival of the fittest has dictated that spice savorers survive. But why? What gives? Well, I suspect that there are a handful of factors all at play here. First, notice the list that I mentioned earlier. Spices have chemicals that serve to keep organisms away, things like bacteria, fungi, and insects. That's good news for us because less bacteria means that the food is going to be able to last for longer periods of time. In short, foods that are heavily spiced are much less likely to rot. Now, take a look at this map and notice where in the world cultures use the most spices. If you look at which parts of the world are home to the people with the long cultural history of using spice in their food, high on the list are countries like India, Mexico, Thailand, Indonesia, and Ethiopia. Notice anything about all those countries? They're all near the equator, meaning that they're more likely to have themselves a hot climate. More heat means greater risk of meat rotting, and rotting meat can be home to all sorts of harmful pathogens. So a good spice rub, or anything that can help reduce that risk, can result in a big health benefit. Sure, it might not be as good as chalking that big old steak into your freezer for the next year until you're ready to eat it, but a little preservation of food is gonna go a long way in the days before refrigeration becomes mainstream. Also, look at this. Most traditional recipes seem to use spices in ways that maximize their effectiveness. For example, cilantro is a spice that has antimicrobial properties, but only when it's fresh. Cooking the cilantro actually kills a lot of those health benefits. Now look at how cilantro tends to be used in various cultures. Mexican salsa, guacamole, ceviche, all places where cilantro is kept fresh and uncooked. Indian curries and chutneys, again, cilantro gets sprinkled on top, fresh. Cilantro in Vietnamese pho, thrown in at the end, fresh. In the Middle East, cilantro is used in tabbouleh, a cool, fresh salad. The cultures that have lasted to pass down their recipes, and the recipes that persist to this very day, are the ones that preserve the natural health properties of the ingredients that they're using. On the other hand, if you look at spices that do get cooked, they tend to be things like onions, garlic, chilies, spices that maintain their antimicrobial properties even after the cooking process. All of these points support the idea that spices benefited early humans by adding microbe-killing properties to their food, reducing the risk of getting sick from the stuff that they were eating. And what's even more fascinating is that these cooking practices date back thousands of years, to a time way before we understood what microbes even were. I mean, our understanding of bacteria didn't come around until the 1800s. If we follow the theory of cultural evolution, the early people that started using spices in their cooking had a higher likelihood of surviving. They might not have known why people who ate spicy food seemed to get sick less and live longer lives, but over time, in certain parts of the world, the cultures that used spices in their cookings were the ones that outlasted the others, and the cultures that didn't tended to die out, or at least adopt the practices of using spice for themselves. And over time, scientists have come to a better understanding of why those long-enduring foods are more beneficial. Maybe that's a lesson that all of us can take away today. Lots of traditional recipes had health benefits long before we understood the scientific reasons behind why they were beneficial in the first place. And that's not all. While the spices themselves may not have nutritional value, by enhancing the flavor of food, spices may result in people just eating more. In one study published in 2008, researchers found that by adding spices, test subjects on average ate 60 more calories per meal. Now, it might not seem like that big of a difference, but it is a difference. And in the game of survival, every extra bit of energy is gonna matter. Another study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that adding red pepper to a meal increased both energy intake and feelings of fullness for overweight and obese participants. The researchers suggested that the increased caloric intake may have been due to the pleasant sensation of warmth from the pepper and the desire to just drink more water. In the end, I wanted to bring this random topic up because at every step along the way, it shows us that there are hidden truths under everything. These things we call Thai chili peppers, not actually Thai, not actually peppers. It was all because of one shady, geographically challenged dude from the 15th century. Why do certain cuisines taste blander than others? Blame Columbus. Again, we eat spices because they taste good, but why do they taste good? Why does our body crave them? Because they literally helped our ancestors survive despite being actively caustic to other creatures. Why do certain recipes survive throughout history? Because those are the recipes that preserve the natural health effects of their ingredients, thereby helping our ancestors survive and pass those recipes on to us today. The history of food is literally the history of life itself. And you know what? That is pretty darn cool. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit. And hey, if you want another really awesome episode, check out our explanation of why everything tastes like chicken. Guess who's to blame? Yep, but also there's a lot of chemistry involved. That link is on the left. Lick it, stick it, whatever you do, just make sure you watch it. Meanwhile, the video on the right is one that YouTube actively chose for you, saying it's the best possible video for you to watch right now. Let me know if it was a good choice down in the comments below, and as always, I'll see you next week.